Well, good afternoon, and thank you so much for having me. I'm sure you're wondering why on earth there's an investment banker on this agenda. And I assure you it wasn't easy explaining back home why I was going to speak at a hacker conference. But nonetheless, we're here, and Dave did mention during the last briefing that we did some dry runs, and it was kind of interesting because the presentation that we did a dry run of was a very traditional banking pitch that I would give at a boardroom or to one of the CEOs at one of the defense companies, and there was sort of a silence at the end of the briefing when I was done, and it was clear that that pitch wasn't going to cut it with you guys. So Dave has asked for a much more blunt speech, and I'm from Jersey, and so we're going to give it a go. And he says you guys can handle it, so here we go. Here's basically what my pitch is about. My job, I live in DC, and I work for a New York City bank, and I buy and sell cyber companies, and mostly I focus on the offense. And I wanted to share with you what is going on in the market with respect to companies that are in your business. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what the customer's saying about you guys, and in general, how the investment community is viewing you. And the impetus for why I'm a speaker today, rather than usually sitting at this conference for the past couple of years, is that I've had about 8 deals fall apart on the 1-yard line. And as much as you're seeing these big, huge numbers for SourceFire or 6.3 in the news, you're not seeing it for the value that you guys are bringing to the table every day. And what I want to talk to you about today are things that you guys could be doing better in order to facilitate the conversation and really bring value out into the marketplace. So let's start at the beginning. Offensive deals. If you look at the funds that are raised in the marketplace over the past, 24 months or more, there's been a lot of money raised for this sector. But it's really by companies with management teams that came out of the commercial industry. You're not seeing management teams fostered from people who've had clearances, that understand the offense, that really understand where the holes are in commercial software, and to know how to build the next generation tools. It's further combined with the M&A transactions. It's the same thing. It's constantly, the dialogue is coming out of the defensive community. And some of that has to do with the fact that we don't look so good lately, right? It's very hard, and we'll talk about this, of what the discussion is and the dialogue that's going on in the boardrooms of the people that are writing the checks. But, this to everyone just breeds risk, and we need to overcome that. Let's just step back and level set some data, and I know that I'm probably going to say some words like EBITDA and valuation metrics, and there might be things that you guys don't do every day, and trust me, I'm listening to your briefs and there's words in there I don't understand either. So please, if there's anything, just stop me, and this is a learning process for both of us. But let's just level set with some data. Looking at the world through an offensive lens, right? You almost have to wonder if anyone even cares about cyber anymore. On the left, I charted out what happened to an index of public security stocks from a day before a breach was announced to five days after. And, really, you're seeing very little change in these stocks. And the time around the Target data breach and Heartbleed, there was actually a lot of fluctuation in the overall market. So it's hard to say that this is even due to any kind of cyber breaches. On the right-hand side is a chart I put together last year looking at, and I was really annoyed about how all of the dialogue in the press about cutting defense budgets was never about investing in the growth areas that they kept talking about future defense systems, to which cyber was a huge part of any of the dialogue, but wasn't showing up in the numbers. And granted, this is the unclassified budget, but when you're an outside investor, and most of these, by the way, these investors have no clearances, and they're looking at an investment profile that looks like this, it's really hard to get them excited. And then you go to the press, and the whole national dialogue is very much coming out of the CIO world. People that are coming from information assurance. Information assurance might be the 6th or 7th thing down on their annual budget that they have to fund. But there's really no national dialogue around information operations. And you guys all know that all of this stuff that people have been investing in is garbage. And at the end of the day, we're still getting breached. And where is the national dialogue coming out from you guys? And I have to say, you guys have to start joining panels and start moving out from the underground and helping out, because that is what it's going to take for people to bring awareness to the art of the possible. So where's the money been going instead? The public market valuations. This has been interesting because over the past 2 or 3 years, there's now public security companies. So besides what happens between the classified market, which does not come out in the press normally, or angel investors or private equity, that type of data and dialogue doesn't reach the national discussion. But public markets, last week when FireEye missed their earnings, it was all over CNBC. So now you've got people that are, the financial performance of these companies is very visible. And what was interesting over the past year was everyone was really excited about all of these information assurance companies and all of their future growth potential, and their first quarter earnings that came out, they all sucked. And a lot of the companies are down 50-60% because they can't show where the growth is coming from. But oh, by the way, they also need further investment to continue and to go after those growth markets. And we're going to talk a little bit about that dialogue that's going on in the boardrooms that's keeping investors away from this space as well. On the private equity side, and again, this is venture capital money or private equity money that's moving into this space. We have some public databases. It's not completely comprehensive, but this is kind of the best that we have. Over the past 2 years, these are the type of capabilities that the private markets have dumped money into. And I put some big chunks in here, and it's not perfect, but you get the drift, is you don't see information operations, information warfare in here at all. This is primarily information assurance. Same thing on the international side. Again, the data is not perfect, but you can see the same trends are going on globally. With respect to U.S. M&A activity, the predominance of what's been talked about in the press with the big numbers, that's all coming out of commercial. And with the other capabilities here, this is all defense type transactions. And clearly there's some offense in the vulnerability analysis, but even some of the M&A activity that got done in this space is not the stuff that we're talking about here in this conference. And then the other point I wanted to make was even if there's some offense embedded in some of these capabilities, look at the valuations that they're getting. And we're going to talk a little bit about that going forward. International M&A, same dynamic. And geographic background, I don't want to get too deep into this, but you can see the US is the largest investor in this space, and that there's plenty of other people, however, that are looking at this globally. So let's talk about market drivers and what's been spurring this activity. The predominance of why the commercial has been such a big part here is that people like Intel and HP realized that they needed to do something to harden their products and services. And a lot of the activity really has been on the IA front, vice the IO front. On the defense side, which is my background, and I can give you a little personal history, is I was on the team, a member of the team that started our cyber practice at Raytheon. And this was very much a strategy that we pursued when we started up our business, was that we wanted to build an end-to-end capability, and in order to harden not only Raytheon internally, but in our supply chain and in our source codes, and to generate next generation warfare solutions. That's all great, but look, a lot of other companies did and pursued very similar strategies. We saw a big M&A thesis go on about 5 years ago. And I guess the question sort of is, did we really get anything out of it, right? And so when you guys go now out to the market to sell your company, there's a lot of legacy questions and things that have not gone that great at these acquisitions, particularly when most of the leaders aren't even at these companies anymore, and these companies are left with sand in their hands. We're in the next generation of this game. And I want to talk to you a little bit about, for the companies that are being sold right now, where we are in that dialogue and what the risks and the opportunities are. For my job, you guys aren't making my job any easier. First of all, a lot of the technologies that you guys have, you've invested in it for 10, 12 years, and it's swayed its purpose along the way. We have a client right now who came in who's trying to do offense, but started out at the help desk 10 years ago. So try explaining that to these people. But when we talk about who are prospective buyers, when you've got a technology that's working and out in the marketplace for 10 years, you're not really seeking venture money, and these companies are largely small. I mean, you'll be lucky if you find a company that's got $2-5 million in sales. So who do you go to? Because you also can't go to private equity. Private equity wants to fund something that's $300 to $600 million and be the next 6'3". So we're having problems if you want to go out to talk to investors, who do we go to? Some other issues that are coming up is the technology completed? The answer is kind of yes and no. It was great 5 years ago. Does it address the cloud? Do you have IP? Is it patented? And kind of where does your technology fit? I now bought all this crap 10 years ago. That doesn't work, but I sort of have it installed. Now, where does your technology fit into this overall architecture? And then we look at the financial plan, which for the most part, especially with the defense budget, the way it went last year, and Snowden, backlogs are anemic. And so when you're trying to be excited about a technology and growth, and the financial plan doesn't look that great, it's hard to also find, if we can find a prospective buyer, to get them excited about giving you the richest valuation out there. And then is there an exit possible for the entire portfolio? I think this is something that has come up, I would say, on 5 of my processes, is that there's some things that you guys do on the offense that doesn't fit into a corporate culture of a white shoe big defense company or publicly traded commercial company. And so there's a lot of times when a process is stalled while we go and shave off part of assets and have to sort of reincorporate it and have it look a completely different way. So all of these things take time. And so when you think about going into a process or selling your company, don't do it when you want to cash out within 3 months, because these are very, very long cycles. So this chart just I want to spend a little bit of time on, and I'm sure a lot of you in here who haven't gone through a process may not appreciate this, but what I'm trying to depict here is once you get through the diligence process and you finally get a buyer and you finally get to the table and you can finally explain to the leadership of someone who's interested in your company in the boardroom, I want to just kind of play out how it's going. The white bubbles is the seller, and the red side is the buyer. And you all sit in a stuffy conference room, nothing like this. And the founder sits here, and he talks about how he bootstrapped his technology, how he hasn't taken in outside investment, and why don't you see my demo? And he's sitting here projecting opportunity. And the stuffy suits on the other side of the table, all they hear is risk. And it's write down these 5 elements of any business always shows up to these M&A meetings. It's always the CTO or the CIO, the CEO, the legal guy in his suspenders, business development, and the chief financial officer. And each of them have their own problem or risk element when they're assessing an M&A transaction, and yet each of them seem to have equal weight in deciding if they're going to pull the trigger on a transaction or not. And so, you have to have answers to all of these questions, and it's part of, when we go out and prepare and due diligence before we go out. But, these are the types of things that people are worried about. So if I looked at the 5 or 8 transactions that have failed that I've worked on in the past 2 years, it really comes around shared risk. And let me just step back and explain what I mean. On the founder side, it seems like all the founders want to get paid for the technology that has been invested in to date. And the buyer says, okay, I appreciate that, you're the smartest guy in the room, and I understand that you've got discriminating technology, but guess what? I have to now invest in your technology to scale it to meet a $1 billion or multi-billion dollar, worldwide enterprise. And I also see that your technology has great application to commercial. And I also understand that you're not investing enough in R&D because you've bootstrapped this thing to really put this thing, to go gangbusters. So that's another investment that's got to be made out just beyond even just writing a check for your technology. And the buyer wants you to share in that risk. And to date, this has really been a friction point because the seller says, well, forget it. I'll wait and I'll go find someone else that appreciates and gives me full value upfront today. The other issue, besides writing a check, is that a large part of offensive companies are using an employee base that is all around the world. And that's great. But when you're looking at a big defense company that really wants to take this technology and employ it on their major classified programs, because that's where they're getting their biggest program dollars, because they have to justify their existence as well, and only a big contract is going to move the needle for them. How do we scale this base, and how does the technology from an ITAR perspective actually work? And they just can't figure it out. They can't figure it out. And then the last is valuation. A large part of these companies, if they have taken money, they've taken money from angel investors or family and friends. And so one of the ways that the buyers are coming up with bridging these gaps is to put an earn-out, which means if you succeed in this year's earnings and next year's earnings, and as you meet these milestones, you get paid. Well, the problem is that the founder's moving on inside the large company, but the guy who actually is the major investor's got his toes in the sand. And so the founder's not happy that he's got to go to work every day to make the angel investor money. And the buyer doesn't really like it because the guy who really has all the skin in the game isn't coming to work every day. So that hasn't been an effective way for everyone to be happy with the valuations. So I was sort of thinking about, how do we move forward, and are we sort of at the stalemate, and how do we break this? And I think we can. I think that collectively we just need to package this differently. And Dave asked for it to be a punchy speech, so here it goes. One of the things I think we need to do to get some deals done is for you guys to to take care of some low-hanging fruit. You can't show up at an investor meeting and spit back a 6.3 valuation, right? Frankly, 6.3 wasn't a cyber deal, and the investment community is really annoyed that that's even coming up as a comparative multiple. Secondly, outline your discriminators. There are business plans coming in and out of investors every day, and no one can figure out who's what, who's good at what, how does this compare to what I saw yesterday? You really need to take some time to do that. And it's not, I know it's not easy. Don't wait for your financials to improve. Everyone's backlog sucks, okay? So, you know, the more that you can get in early and talk to these investors about your technology, how it's different, who you are, who you have working for you, and what you have on the horizon, and get them comfortable with what you're doing every day and becoming more visible, that's a really great way to improve investor confidence. And speed to market. You know, again, don't wait, okay? No, you know, the commercial guys who don't have a clue, you know, and don't have a clearance, they're not waiting. They're out there just pushing and peddling whatever. So don't be intimidated. The hard thing to say, look, when we show up at a large company and there's only 1 or 2 people, it looks like we're a very nascent business and we're in a very nascent part of the market. And that might be true, but we have been around for 10, 15 years or so. It's time to show up and look like a real mature business. And that might be, you know, meaning bolster your management team. Bolster your management team with people that are not engineers, and that could bring a different aspect to the business plan. The business plans that keep coming in, they're engineering cost plans. There's a lot more that goes in from a business perspective than just the technology. And that's a really important point because most of the investors, not really sure what you're doing technologically, but they know kind of just the basics of what you need to do to build a business that scales. Make your processes very visible and world-class. When we talked about those photos of Snowden and the NSA picture and the Boeing Norris picture that was on the other page, people are worried. People are worried about what it is that we're doing and how can they control this, and what if the founder does leave and I have their employees, you know, what exactly are they doing? And so I think that the way that we can improve this is to have very visible, you know, much more, unfortunately, some processes, I'm not saying Six Sigma, but some processes that, you know, a larger, more mature company would have. And then we talked about increasing the national dialogue with the press pages. You know, I would love to see you guys take more of a leadership role in policy development and more visibility with the large IT companies and the telecoms to really get them to understand to the extent the art of the possible when we're talking about offense. Think bigger. A lot of the business plans that come in, people are asking for $2 or $3 million. And we talked about those tweener investors that are out there. I mean, frankly, if we can't spend $30, $40 million, they're not interested. And I know we can spend $30, $40 million. We just need to think bigger. Let's talk about thinking bigger. There's brand new markets that are emerging here. I know you guys all know this, but you know, SCADA, Fortune 500, international. They're really starting to finally wake up and come around to, hey, we got to do something. And largely these are all greenfield markets. And you know what I've found the best thing that I've been telling clients to do is to fork your code and come up with 3 or 4 different subsidiaries in your business. You're actually creating a tremendous amount of value. And if you're waiting for the buyer to realize how they can take your technology and exploit it to these new markets, we're going to be waiting a long time. They have no idea. So unfortunately, we're going to have to build the first business plan, which again might mean bringing in different talent than just pure engineering in your company. And then we can, you know, maintain flexibility that if we wanted to spin out one of these companies and continue moving on, that we can do that. And there's companies that are emerging that have raised money in the past, you know, this year actually, that are going after these types of markets. in addition to the large companies as well. And then finally, the expensive things to do, we need to reinvest in the core. If you didn't sell your company in the last M&A wave, you've missed it. And we just need to say, okay, we missed it. And this is part of the repackaging, and we're going to move on to the next round. And what we did in the last round now looks like buggy whips. So I can't keep doing the same thing. And so there's brand new technologies that are out there. There's a lot of discussion about mobile. There's a lot of discussion about cloud. There's a lot of discussion about moving up into much more higher network speeds. And how does our technology fit into that tech roadmap? And then finally, I think that there is going to be a lot of demand for brand new tool development, given where we are with Snowden. And it's gonna require brand new investment from you guys. And so I think that there's definitely an opportunity for you to raise money inside to support your core technologies, and also to bolster out, again, as I said, an advisory board or management that can help you understand these brand new markets and where we're going. So I hope that wasn't too harsh, and if we have any questions, happy to take it.
Who can translate hex in their head? See, it's the different talks that render people questioning their own lifestyles. All right, well, thank you very much. Oh, wait. There is one brave soul. And he's even wearing some sort of suit. Perhaps he's another banker.
Towards the beginning of the presentation, you were talking about VC firms and private equity firms investing in offensive cyber capabilities, which I don't believe traditionally has ever happened. Do you have any examples of when that's ever happened, or if that's ever happened in the past?
I do, but I probably can't talk about it publicly. But it has occurred, yes.
If they were private equity, if it was private money, why would it be secret?
If it was private money, why would it be secret?
Like if it was like some kind of investment firm buying a company's offensive technology.
The companies were housing classified programs.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
I think so.
They weren't outwardly saying that they were doing this work.
Okay.
Cool, we had one brave soul. Usually that means there's a flood of other brave souls. Is that a brave soul over there?
I was wondering if you could comment on FireEye's secondary offering and like the behavior of the CEO recently.
I don't think so. Nice try.
It's a trap. Okay.